On a clear autumn afternoon in Durham, an ordinary apartment complex became the center of a police standoff, and moments later, the scene of a life ended. The call that brought officers to Laurel Springs Drive began as a barricade situation. When it ended, a woman was dead and a man was in custody. The city would be left searching for answers. How did a routine response turn into a homicide investigation? And what does this one neighborhood's tragedy reveal about relationships, violence, and community safety? According to police dispatch logs and local reporting, officers were called to an apartment complex in the 1100 block of Laurel Springs Drive shortly after midday. Neighbors reported a man barricaded inside. Patrol units quickly formed a perimeter, and specialized units, negotiators and tactical teams, staged nearby. The standard priority in those early moments was containment, protect the public, establish communication, and attempt a peaceful resolution. When the barricaded person emerged, he surrendered. Officers took the man into custody without reported incident. But when entry teams subsequently searched the apartment, they found a woman unresponsive. She was later pronounced dead at the scene. The man arrested has been identified in reporting as 31-year-old Christopher Brian Whitley of Durham. In the hours after the incident, police released limited details. Local outlets reported that the man who had been barricaded surrendered and was in custody. Investigators later told reporters they believed the fatality was not random. The woman and the man had been in a relationship, and early evidence led detectives to treat the case as an intimate partner homicide. That connection, the suggestion that this was a former lover killing, would shape both the investigation and the public's response. At this stage, detectives had secured the scene and called in forensic teams. Neighbors watched as evidence technicians moved in with gloves, cameras, and careful steps, turning an apartment into a locus of forensic attention. For investigators, those hours are methodical, processing, collecting, cataloging, and trying to preserve every trace that might explain what happened, who was responsible, and why. When we consider the victim, it is important to pause. Out of respect for privacy, and because media reports did not immediately publish the victim's name in all outlets, this account does not identify the woman beyond acknowledging she was an adult resident found inside the apartment. What the reporting does make clear is the human cost. A life was taken, and behind every statistic is family, friends, and a community called to grieve. She was someone known to neighbors as quiet, someone who kept to herself. You never expect something like this to happen here. It's shocking, one neighbor reflected. If there is a through line in these tragedies, it is that the person lost was not merely a headline. She had relationships, routines, and people who will remember her. Family and friends must suddenly navigate police notifications, autopsy reports, and the grief that follows. If you or someone you know is impacted, there are resources at the end of this program. When a homicide is discovered after a barricade or a standoff, investigations proceed on two parallel tracks: the immediate scene response and the longer-term criminal inquiry. Detectives interview first responders and witnesses, subpoena phone and location records when lawful, conduct forensic examinations, and coordinate with the district attorney's office on potential charges. Local reporting indicates Durham police treated the case as a homicide and collected evidence to support that investigation. An important aspect of any such investigation is transparency balanced against the need to avoid compromising evidence. Police often release only what's required: the date, the location, suspect custody status, and an appeal for witnesses, while withholding tactical details that might undermine a prosecution. That measured communication seeks to protect both the integrity of the investigation and the privacy of the people affected. Tragically, many homicides of adult women are committed by current or former intimate partners. When police tell reporters that a suspected killer and the victim had been involved romantically, it fits a larger, grim pattern in criminal statistics nationwide. That pattern demands a deeper look at prevention, community supports, and the warning signs that sometimes precede violence. Power, control, and escalation are common dynamics in these cases. Friends or family sometimes notice warning signs, isolation, controlling behavior, or threats, but it can be hard to intervene safely. That's why accessible services matter. Resources exist: hotlines, shelters, legal aid, and community outreach programs. In Durham and across the state, organizations work to provide confidential help, safety planning, and advocacy for survivors. When a neighbor's life is lost to violence, the community often responds with immediate acts of grief: vigils, flowers at a makeshift memorial, social media posts, and calls for answers. That public outpouring can be both cathartic and clarifying. For loved ones, the legal process is a long corridor of autopsy results, police reports, and later, court proceedings. For the neighborhood, it's a reminder of vulnerability, and sometimes a prompt to action. We gather to mourn, yes, but we also gather to demand safety and to support those among us who might be at risk. A tragedy like this exposes gaps we must address, one community leader explained. Reporters on the ground documented police tape, a stunned apartment complex, and neighbors recounting what they'd seen or heard. Those human stories frame the cold facts of investigation with the warmth of lived experience, the memory of a person, and the impact on a neighborhood's sense of security. After arrest, a suspect's case moves into the criminal justice system. Prosecutors review the evidence collected by detectives to determine appropriate charges. The suspect may be charged with murder, held without bond, or face additional charges depending on what the investigation reveals. Local reporting indicated the man arrested after the standoff was being processed on homicide-related charges, while police continued to collect evidence and interview witnesses. Everyone is entitled to due process. An arrest is the beginning of the legal process, not the end. The prosecutor must prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt in court. For victims' families, the months that follow can feel interminable. For the accused, the presumption of innocence remains a legal cornerstone. The court calendar, bond hearings, indictment, arraignment, discovery exchanges, pretrial motions, and, if necessary, trial, can stretch many months. The public watchful eye often demands prompt answers, but the justice system intentionally moves at a pace designed to protect rights and secure reliable outcomes. A single incident, an apartment, a barricade call, a surrender, and the discovery of a life ended, becomes a prism through which we view much larger social questions. How we prevent intimate partner violence, how law enforcement and communities respond, how we support survivors and families left behind. For residents of Durham, the event is a reminder that safety is both a public responsibility and a community practice. For all of us, it is an invitation to listen, to learn, and to act. If you are affected by intimate partner violence, you are not alone. Confidential help is available. Local organizations in Durham, as well as the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE, provide support 24 hours a day. We extend our deepest sympathies to the family and friends of the woman whose life was taken. And we stand with the broader Durham community in a shared search for answers and safety. For more true crime stories, please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue shining a light on cases that deserve to be remembered.